So it's been a moment, and I think now is officially the perfect time to release the good videos, or at least start to release some of the good videos. This one is for July. Make sure you check it out on the alternate channel. Take a look at that. Before you go watch this video is sort of the admin's commentary. Afterwards, I shared them this video. Really quick before we go into all that commentary, I just wanted to say a quick thing. So originally, I've had this idea for this video, this Discord doc, for over a year now, and never really figured out the direction I really wanted it to go in. As you can probably tell, this documentary was written podcast style, but I realized that wasn't entirely possible, and it's sort of been reshaped into a video. I wrote parts of the script and specific editing choices in that way, but I hope it's not too noticeable, and now that when you go back and watch this doc, when you do watch it, watch the doc first, then come back here. There are parts of it that really make me cringe, and there are parts of the doc that just make me scream yes. The final cut of the doc represents exactly how I felt when I hit export, but I'm not entirely sure it reflects on my point of view now. Stuff changes a lot. Regardless, enjoy. I joined a VC with the admins afterwards, talking a little bit about this. It's funny, interesting, and there's going to be a couple more videos with the admins because it's really entertaining. Let me know if you want more. Subscribe. ZD out. That one, I don't know. To me, it really didn't, because it felt like more of a, I guess, like a story almost.
Yeah, but that's what a good documentary typically will be. It's going to be, you know, a progressive story, and then where we're at, and then it also asks questions. I mean, the whole point of, the reason I like that one more is it got me to think. It wasn't just really outlining what happened in terms of, you know, your progression through the ranks and stuff. And I saw the text, the message I sent you. That's funny.
Yeah, I didn't want to put that one in, but
no. You can use, you can use whatever messages you think are appropriate. You know, I'm very open.
Yeah.
But no, I like that one because as I was watching it, I was thinking about my own answers to a lot of the questions you were asking, which was really nice because, you know, it's you get tied up in being an admin, or you lost it at some point. And I mean, you know, holy shit, I think I've done this longer than anyone at the admin level. So I think I've lost and regained it at least a dozen times. Usually they're fast enough where no one really quite notices. But there was, I think, that one like 5 months where I was like, nah, fuck this, I'm done. I need like a real break. But no, it was really cool. I was watching that, and you know, it got me thinking about the same exact things. And I think you hit a lot of nails on the head in terms of how most people who have gone through like the staff progression would describe many aspects of it. And it's really funny because most people say that the server guide role, or not server, well, the original server guide, I think it's what?
Regional like
moderator now?
The apprentice.
Yeah, the initial stepping stone role into staff, everyone would always say that is the most fun one. Just because there's no expectations, and then the higher up you go, you know, you get a lot more expectations. It's a lot more politics, and so it becomes a little bit more of a drag. But no, I really liked, because I mean, it hit the nail on the head for a lot of people, I think.
Thank you. Katie, any thoughts?
Well, you know, I was listening, I was like, yeah. And then I was thinking about myself, and I'm like, except actually, no. I mean, for me, Server Guide was fun and exciting, and like, for my personal kind of journey, it was all those positive things. But it was also, for me, intimidating and stressful. I had never moderated anything. I've never even really played a multiplayer game before this. I mean, unless you count StarCraft, taking turns in college and that kind of baloney. So I found Server Guide, you know, the OG Server Guide, which to be like fun, but stressful. I didn't understand the bots. I didn't really understand Discord or the server. I had never really had to interact with people like this or work on a team like this or any of it. I've been most comfortable and had the most fun as admin. More stress and more struggle and more drama, and
I can probably attest to that. Kat originally almost told me to fuck off when I approached her. for staff, just because, like she said, she was just so nervous and out of her comfort zone.
Completely.
So the $1 million question is typically because, especially towards me when it comes to staff and what requirements, I think we've kind of kept the original standards that I was looking for back then when the other two admins essentially left and it was just me. It boiled down essentially to trust. It was trust and gut. I don't think that anyone who wanted the role was always a good fit for the role, because to want something in my eyes always meant there was some purpose to why you wanted it, right?
And I think there's always that dichotomy that we're struggling with, because the people who are like, fuck no, you're like, we want you the most, but you already know that this is going to be pain.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, and then you've got the thirsty people. But there are a few exceptions in the middle ground that are just generally self-aware, responsible people that are like, I'm here and I'd like to contribute, and it looks like that's the appropriate path. So
yeah, I definitely feel like I was the middle ground, because like I said in the video, like originally it was voice, but then like now I definitely say my reason for sticking around is different.
There are exceptions, but I think in general that's true, that the thirsty ones are the ones that you like, it's a disqualification to want the job.
The $1 million question in terms of what we look for really boils down to trust, to intention. And I guess intention is it's a hard thing to determine in terms of people, but there's a lot of key factors, especially in the beginning, that I looked for. With like Kat in particular, I remember she would just show up and answer like 500 questions every freaking hour. We'd do it right there as the chat's flowing. And I just remember thinking to myself, wow, she's absolutely nuts. So I think she'd be great for staff, because, that's also one of the qualities I look for, is just someone who absolutely hates themselves, because that's the only type of person that can make it.
Who would sit down for 14 hours.
She was there to genuinely just want to learn and to genuinely just want to help. And that's really what it boiled down to. And the same thing was what I was talking about before I cut off with you, ZD, is, the main reason I think that the other admins decided collectively and also unanimously that you would be the best choice in terms of a content creator sided admin or staff in general is the sheer fact that you had a humbleness to you. You were really, really active back then, and you were really helpful, and there was a genuineness that YouTuber or content creator ego hadn't taken over yet. And I don't think it's ever really taken over for you. You're still just as consistent as I remember back then when I talked to you. But that's really what it boiled down to. And we trusted you. That's the weirdest thing, is everything you said was true, and then who you presented as on videos and who you presented as in the chats and even on VCs. I mean, it was all consistent throughout, and that's just not always the case.
I don't know if I talked back then in videos.
I think you were too shy. I heard you jump on like a VC or two. You sounded really different back then.
Yeah, Marissa's VC. That's also the other reason why I didn't talk as much, because that
is good at dragging that out of people.
Yeah,
it's her superpower. If you're going to talk about the growth of people on the server, and showing their genuine selves and being less shy, and especially when it comes to VC, you can't not talk about Marissa.
In a weird way, when I was watching your video and I told you I started thinking about my own journey, and I had never intended to do this actually for more than like a year, when the original admins and the devs were like, hey, do you want to be an admin? I really was like, okay, we'll do this for like a year. I'm bored anyways. Let's just see what happens. It's like 3.5, almost 4 years later.
Yeah.
And I'm still here. But one of the biggest things I really liked that I think you talked about in one of your videos is what this place means. And I think for a lot of people it changes, but at the same time, I think everyone's here because one way or another, they're either running towards something or away from something in real life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most people who play video games, from my experience, they do it because it's an escape. And it's a healthier escape than, like we're not
Popping
up or we're doing copious amounts of
candy.
So it's a healthier escape. And then not only that, but when you build communities like the Discord server, or you get these large groups of people together to interact and collaborate, you start feeling a sense of belonging. And I think that was the original vision that we had imagined for the Discord server. Granted, the first few months were just fucking chaos. I'm sure you guys remember, it was insane. It was, you described it as the Wild West. It's exactly what it was. I think we were banning people every 5 minutes, and we were doing it publicly, which was, not always in the best taste, but sometimes it was hilarious. Sometimes entire channels would act up, like the French channel, of course. They had their little French revolution in the server. And it was where we were still early on trying to establish a culture or a mentality for the server, right? And one of the biggest things that we had originally talked about in terms of, the other two original admins, Zombie and Ash, and myself, is we didn't want this community to be toxic or a place where people, didn't want to be. All those cliche stereotypes of online communities, those were all the things we were trying to stay away from.
With regard to like the documentary story, almost, I never actually intended it to like reflect for like other staffers. I threw the questions in there, but it was more of like, just how do I intro this? How do I outro this? Do you think that most LDUE staffers are going to remember this or their own personal stories, kind of like how I documented it?
Yeah. I think first, I think it was a great documentary, and I think that video in particular was really phenomenal because it was so different. And then also, number two, I don't think it just applies to staff. I think if you look at kind of the history of the chats and everyone who's kind of come and gone, there's big characters and big personalities that have passed through the community. You see this trend of it takes the exact same path that you described, where there's this initial excitement and rush of, oh, this is new, this is exciting, and this sense of belonging. And then there's this it's like a relationship, man. There's like this super excitement, you're in that honeymoon phase and you're like, this shit is so cool, this server's amazing, like if I type in bunker code, like I get some automatically back, it's just wowzers, and people's brains are exploding. And then you check back with them 6 months later and they're in that weird jaded phase where they're just like not talking to the server, they're not on talking terms. But it's a weird cycle, man, and you see it with every single person, not just even the staff. I think it's a little more pronounced with staff because there's so many more eyes on us, but when you do watch the survivors, you see kind of that same cycle of excitement, then they get jaded, then there's like this moment of
what am I doing?
Yeah, exactly, this questioning of why am I here, this like whole reassessment of their life decisions and like judgment. And then something weird always happens is there's always this weird pivotal point, especially for people within any community, especially our community though, where you kind of decide, and you don't even realize you're making that decision, but you decide whether or not you're going to keep going with this, right? Whenever you've fulfilled, or whenever you've maybe realized that you can't fulfill, whenever one of those two things happen with the server and whatever your purpose for being there is, I think people kind of make this decision subconsciously whether or not they continue. And I think for a lot of people, I know particularly me, it boiled down to the relationships that you build. Like I said, I was not planning on being staff or even really a part of this community for more than the first year. I was really brought on board just to help grow the shit out of the server, and and then I was gonna just deuces and peace out and do my own thing again. But I think I kind of bamboozled myself into being stuck.
I think it's all kind of tangled up and together in the things that you've already said, that when you first come, you're here to get help, and then you start giving help, and then you hit the moment of, oh, I got what I came here for, why am I still here? And then you look around, and in that moment, the people who stay because the reason you're here now is the other people here and how you fit in with them.
So as I've sort of done with like a couple of the other docs, the LDUE doc, the Frostborn doc was kind of meh, but I've kind of left the ending, or the future almost, up to like interpretation for the viewer, or in this case for both of you guys. So where do you see the direction of all of this, the LDUE, the server stuff going? Do you think it's going to fall because of the direction LDUE takes, or do you think it's, we've built something and it'll last forever, stuff like that?
The broader question, or the broader answer to that question, is all things will end, right? You play any game, like Kat mentioned earlier, you play StarCraft or you play any game, and in its heyday, it is the hottest thing out, but they all have a lifespan. Every single thing actually that exists, naturally or man-made, has a weird lifespan. Yeah. So ultimately, yeah, I think that LDOE is going to fizzle out, and I don't think it's because of the devs' decisions, or that there's more than enough players where we've reached a critical mass point where it's not going to be because people are just quitting the game. It's going to be more of that natural regression of people just find other games, right? Or they become more interested in life. A lot of the player base is teenagers, and at some point they're going to grow. Those 14-year-old boys are going to grow up, and they're going to notice girls, and they're going to be like, "Wow, these exist in real life, and I don't need to stare at my character in her underwear anymore," right? So I think that's a natural progression, because over time people change, things change, everything changes. So I think ultimately it's going to naturally come to its own conclusion, right? So that's one part of the answer. I think ultimately, no matter what we decide for the server, it's going to have its own natural course, right? So the second part of that answer is, at this point, I look at the server like its own living entity. Anyone who thinks that the staff has any actual form of control, or no one group of people or individual person in the server who actually controls any massive amount of it. I think that it's at the point where it's taken on its own life. We've created some weird alien baby. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I was gonna say a beehive, but even that doesn't quite.
Yeah, it's just kind of its own. It's like every single individual player is a connection within a brain. It's like a synapse, right? And we have so many connections at this point. It's become its own intelligent thing.
It's a honeycomb.
So yeah, do we have goals and plans for the server? Any staff member especially will always remember is I always preach on the fact that we serve the community. We're not above it. I've always described myself and staff as just survivors with colored roles. And I think that's a very genuine, I feel that the majority of staff believes.
I think my answer is a little different, but specifically because I look at it differently. Like what Leo said about, the game kind of coming to a natural end in whatever format that takes, because we've seen gaming take different directions. I think, the game would kind of have that natural life cycle. But I think the uniqueness of what we have here also means that its end is not necessarily as bound to the game. Like, I don't think if LDOE suddenly shuttered its doors and turned off their servers that we'd just carry on every day like nothing had changed. But I think the thing that we've built here does have a life of its own after that game's natural end. Spirit and that alien life that we have here, parts of it will cling together. I think, parts of the staff are like, we want to know what our next project is, because this is a solid team and we've found good alchemy here. Why not capitalize on that on the next thing and the next? And then the smaller branches that break off on their own, those kids finding girls, are they going to talk differently to their girls because they saw how Leo spoke to trolls and to other people? The parts that matter are going to live. I don't think they can stop now.
Yeah, I think this server has become a zombie. It's not going to die.
It'll just respawn.
Yeah, it's just going to respawn. We're just going to start at some weird home base naked, and then we're going to have to rebuild. But for the most part, I mean, yeah, the community is a zombie at this point. We're just not, we're not capable of death.
Yeah.
There's too many people, too many friendships that are made.
I think this is where I conclude off, and I guess I'll leave it to both of you to leave whatever concluding thoughts you want, but I'll just leave mine. Admin podcast when?
Oh.
Admin podcast one.
I think it'd be fun.